everybody. Job that's in every house. Doorknob hole. Sometimes you have these door stops, they fell. And then you hit the door. Now what? Sometimes you could buy these covers and they'll cover the hole. If you would have got a bigger cover than this, you could have just put that over it and called it a day. But if you want to fix it the right way, drywall way, you're going to have to patch it in. So first things first, we are going to put some plastic down on our tarp, and then we're going to cut out the area. This is a basic doorknob hole. Everybody's going to get one in the house eventually. So this is a basic job. You can do it yourself type repair. So let's go ahead and get to work and get this patched up. And basic materials you're going to need: wood backing, anything works. I like to use these 1x2s. If you don't have 1x2s, you can always use a 2x4. Small piece of sheetrock. This is 1/2 inch sheetrock. Most interior walls are 1/2 inch sheetrock. Sometimes you'll get 5/8, but 5/8 sheetrock is usually in garages or sometimes apartments or condos. It's a fire rated sheetrock, but the majority of the interior walls in houses is just a 1/2 inch sheetrock. Of course, you're going to need some drywall screws. These are 1.25 inch coarse drywall screws. Basic screw gun, Phillips head screw gun, fiberglass mesh tape, and of course muds and textures. But the first things first, we got to get this sheetrock, so I'm going to have to square it up. Easy way to use a square edge. Use a piece of wood as a level. Pencil it off, pencil it off, pencil it off. So add to the pile of tools you need a pencil. Ta-da! Got me a pencil, just like that. So let's go ahead and we're going to get this, use these basic tools I have here. I'm going to just use these little 1x2s since it's a smaller patch. Let's get it cut open first and see what we need. Get some backing behind it. Sometimes these guys like to use these little metal clips too. Drywall clips, those work good, but they're not cheap. So let's get to work here and get this all patched in. Cut out. Pencil, like I said, I like to check inside the hole, see actually how big the hole is. Sometimes it looks like it finishes there and then it's broken off inside the wall, so you want to go past the actual hole, past the obvious, down below, past the obvious. Another way of doing this is just cut your sheetrock beforehand and use that as a template. That's what some guys like to do. Oh, another tool. You're always going to need a razor. Cut out the sheetrock. Your pencil lines, go ahead and follow them. Follow them. This is just to cut out the area square. You could do a round patch, I guess, if you want to really be creative, but this is the easiest way, is just to square it up. Score it a couple times. You're not trying to go all the way through the sheetrock. You want to go through at least halfway, and then it'll be easy to break, snap the sheetrock. You can also keep a piece of the cutout, of course, for your paint match. This is a custom yellow, so keep that piece always for a paint match. You can take that to any paint store, and then hopefully they can do a good paint match. Get it all cut out, removed. So you can see a little doorknob hole turned into a big hole already. Square up the areas. If you wanted, you can cut to the next stud, but the next stud's over here and you'd have to cut center. So if you went from stud to stud, now you have a large patch. So that's why we use the backing. These 1x2s are perfect. This is my go-to backing. For your backing, wood backing, you just put on the sides. You can do on the bottom, sides, diagonal, whatever you want to do. On this one, I'm just going to go on the sides right here. You're not going like this. If I see people that do patches like this, they just put a wood in the center. You need to go halfway center, so you can put a screw on the outside edge in the old sheetrock, and you can get a screw in the new sheetrock. Old sheetrock and new sheetrock, So you center. That's called centering the stud. Your backing is center. Add a screw in the top. Make sure you hit the stud too. If you didn't hit the stud, you might have to go lower or toenail it. Get that screw sunk. One on top, one on the side. That's good to go. Your second backing, go ahead and put that in. That's why I like to always keep these on hand. They're easy. They work pretty much for any situation. Make sure your screw gun's charged. So I'm going to have to go get this thing charged in. I'm going to kick it on lower torque. I just need to get enough, 2 more screws in. Come on. Alright, that's good enough. Any sides, you always clean up with your edges with your razor, no big deal. You can measure it, but I like to just do this. Mark it with my razor. Bottom, top, bring it down. Top, top. This is not the ideal patch way, but when you do hundreds of patches, trust me, this is the easiest way. Then you can whittle them down. Whittle them down to fit. This is a green board piece. You necessarily don't have to use green board. I just have this on hand, a scrap piece of sheetrock that I have. So I like to use my scraps whenever possible for these smaller jobs so I don't waste any materials. You could just use a regular sheetrock. And if you're doing a small project, I've even seen the home improvement stores, they sell 2x2 pieces, little pieces that you can buy. I know there's a lot of kits out there, like a metal plate patching kit. Don't use those. Please, please, everybody. I don't care what people say. I've removed more of those and redid it the right way than I've used them. So just use sheetrock for your patches, nice and tight. Any sides. Hopefully I have enough power in this drill to sink a few screws. If not, I'll have to put a new battery in. Oh, 1, 2 more screws is all I need. Please drill. Oh, she is dead. Alright, let's take a break. I need a new battery. Always have your batteries charged, or have a second battery on hand before your project. Now, stop what I'm doing. Just to Alright, you got a new battery, full battery, ready to go. Now I can go to town with these screws. These little drills are awesome, but the only problem I don't like is that the batteries don't last as long. They're perfect for patchwork. I know they have another battery you can put in here that has bigger juice, more battery power, maybe down the road. Maybe if you guys watch these videos, watch more of them, I can actually make $1 and can buy some better tools, better batteries. This is actually an awesome drill for patchwork. Small little drill. I have a bigger drill, but it's way too heavy, so this is perfect. Plus it has clips. I'm not endorsed or nothing. I wish I was endorsed by this company. Everybody loves these tools. This is my go-to. I just like the extension handle on it, or the extension, so I can reach patches on ceilings. Plus it's easier for me than just a little drill tip. I like the extended clip. People always make fun of me, but I found out these work perfect, especially on ceiling patches. Enough of that. Got the screws in. There's plenty of screws. See how we put the screws in the backing? That's a strong patch. Next step, get your 6-inch knife. You're going to have to scrape it, scrape it, scrape it. I like to always scrape past my patch area where I'm going to mud, so if there's any boogers in this area, it gets those off, so when I go to mud I don't get chatters. See, like that. fiberglass. But first I'm going to use this. This is an optional product, spray glue. You don't have to use this. I just keep it on hand. I'm not endorsed by this company either. I wish I was. This is an awesome product I use. It's an optional product because this is a dusty old painted wall. Fiberglass tape loves to stick to new sheetrock, but it does have trouble sticking to dusted painted walls. Fiberglass mesh tape. I don't care what anybody says. This is a product I use. There's so many other products out there. I'm sure there's better products out there, but I have to warranty my work. So I always use a fiberglass mesh tape on all my drywall repairs. You got to know how to use it. Go past your patch. Go past the patch. Any little strings, you got to get them off. And then when I do cross, I'm going up and down now. I'm going to overlap my original tape that I did on the horizontal. So vertical tape's going to go over the horizontal tape. So now I got double tape in the corners. Double tape in the corners. Push down. Hey, that looks good, but hey, I can do extra credit. I can do a diagonal piece that way. Looks good. Hey, I can do another diagonal piece that way. Guess what? This is the strongest point in the wall right now. I'd recommend them getting a better door stop, but if they hit this again, it shouldn't break unless they're slamming it open. I'm going to check the door stop too, and I'm going to re-screw this into the baseboard. It looks like it was loose, so I'm going to tighten that up. Keep your piece for your paint match, and that's pretty much it. Hanging tools, all the tools I said, put them away. Your next step now is going to mud it. So we're going to do a first coat mud on this. First coat, I'm just going to use a hot mud, 5-minute mud. If you've never mudded before, just use a joint compound. Don't use spackles, don't use hot muds, just use a joint compound. Joint compound, you put the coat on, let it dry overnight. It takes it overnight to dry, then you sand it. Do a second coat, sand it. If need be, sand it again, do a third tight coat, then it's ready for texture. Alright. First coat mud's always going to be thick, real thick. I'm using a hot mud, of course, because I have to finish this in one trip. Fiberglass, whatever material you're using, you want to take your 6-inch knife and strike it in. Strike in the fiberglass. Strike it in and push it down, pushing down. I'm pushing the mud inside the mesh of the fiberglass, and I'm getting it inside the gap. Basically, this is like a pre-fill. Coating knife, I can use my 6-inch knife and coat it since it's such a small patch. I'm just going to use my coat knife. Nothing to it. Like in my other videos, got to feather the edges. I'm steering my steering wheel. This is my steering wheel. I'm going to feather the edge, so I'm going to put more pressure on this side of the knife since I'm going to feather it. Feather it. Feather it. See, nice feather. Now I'm going to do the right hand side. Your right, my right. Do this side, left hand side, then the bottom. All 4 sides are feathered, and then just go down the center. Feather it, feather it. It's good enough. I mixed way too much 5-minute mud. That's okay. If I put this mud on heavy enough and I slick it out, it might be ready for texture. But we're going to see. Once you're done coating, always clean up your tools. That's number 1 rule. Clean them up, all extra mud. Just scrape it out of your pan. Dump it on a piece of plastic or old sheetrock. Just get it out of the way. Just don't step in it. You don't want to track mud everywhere stuck on your shoes. Go clean your tools. As that's setting up, we're going to go clean our tools and set up for the next step. My next step, I'm going to slick it out with a damp sponge and a 6-inch knife. I'm going to hit the edges with the sponge, kind of go over it with the damp sponge, and I'm going to slick it out with my 6-inch knife. Slicking it out basically takes off the extra material, pushes it down, and feathers off the lap marks, any heavy areas, and basically takes off the extra material. Since the patch is put on pretty heavy, the mud work, once we slick it out, it might be ready for texture. 1 coat with a good first coat of hot mud might do it. since we're doing a smooth texture, I might have to just skim over it real tight and call it a day. So let that set up. Takes about 5 minutes or so with 5 minute. That's why it's called 5 minutes. Alright, it's been about 5 minutes. It's still wet if you push down really hard, but it's pretty much setting up. Take your 6-inch knife, clean, straight 6-inch knife. Take your damp, wet sponge. Hit that edge. That edge is most important. Just kind of glide over it. See, the sponge is almost doing a lot of work taking off the lap marks, the knife marks. But now that the patch is kind of damp, I'm going to go over it. Some guys like to go over it the opposite direction of the first coat. I'm pushing down kind of hard. Pushing down. Some guys like to really push down. But you just need to push down enough to take off that extra mud. Take it off. You're feathering it. That extra mud on your knife is almost, you're using it to go over everything again, giving it a tight skim coat. It's good. I don't know what that blemish is. Something's in the mud. Yeah, a little bit of a yellow paint. So take that mud, since it left a gouge in there, and just fill it in. Fill it in. Your extra mud, just take it off your knife. This is a good patch already. You know, I can sit here and do another tight second coat, but sometimes putting too much mud on the wall is not a good thing because you're creating a hump on the wall. This is a smooth type texture, so I'm going to be texturing it with a topping mud. Joint compounds or toppings work good for textures. That's all I would use for textures. I wouldn't texture this with a hot mud. I'm just going to skim over it. Skim over it. It's just like a Santa Fe skim's how they call it. Like you put it on like a rough skip trowel and trowel it down, trowel it down, trowel it down. The smoother textures, you will have lap marks, sometimes from your knife marks, lap marks, what we call them. That's okay. You can sand those out the next day, but that's pretty much it. Some guys like to kill the edge with a damp sponge, but sometimes better just to let it set overnight and then get rid of that edge with sandpaper. Let your mud joint compounds, they have to set up overnight, 24 hours, and then you would sand it with like a foam, fine or medium sanding block, or 150 to 220 grit sandpaper. Just lightly sand it. Lightly sand it. A little more effort on the edge to blend it in. Just kind of sand the patch and then just primer. You always have to primer before paint. Primers, they will seal up the area because mud is absorbent and wants to absorb water. Paint and wants to absorb paint, especially the center of the patch where it's really heavy in mud, 1/4 inch or more thick in mud. It wants to soak in all that paint. So that's why you use a primer. The primer fills in all that areas, fills in all the pores of the mud. So when you go to do your paint, the paint just goes on. It doesn't try to soak into the center of the patch. They call that flashing. Sometimes when you go see jobs where they painted a bunch of drywall touch-ups, little holes everywhere, and you can kind of see all the little holes, even though they painted them, it's because they never primered them. So always, always primer drywall patches. A little nail hole that big or a big whole sheet of drywall, it's going to need primer. But just let that dry. Simple doorknob hole. Repaired, drywall, all patched in and textured in less than 30 minutes. This is a job you can probably do yourself. Like I said, they have those kits where it's like a metal mesh kit. I wouldn't use them. This is the best way to do it with actual sheetrock. They don't use metal meshes to build houses, they use sheetrock. So just patch it in the correct way. Get a nice door stop. Or you can also use these little plates. Some people like to glue them on and just glue them on the wall. I would paint the wall. Or if you want to paint over that, then just put some glue, caulking or something on there. Stick it on the wall. Put a piece of masking tape over it to hold it until the glue dries. And then just primer everything. You can primer over these. These should be paintable. And then just paint it all. These are the best go-to. They're cheap. $1, $2 for these. And they're pretty strong. I'd rather have these on my walls than big old goofy door stops. So these work good for the walls. Cheap thing, especially if you have kids, rough teenagers. They're good to have these for walls behind doors, protect it from getting hit by the doorknobs. So I recommend these, especially this one's a heavy duty plastic one. So these work great. That's pretty much it. If you haven't liked yet, please like this video, comment. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I have many videos like this, small patches, do-it-yourself repairs, drywall repairman channel. Hey, thanks for viewing.